Ian Lindsay of Lindsay and Associates has played an active role in the local community since 1979. He has been with RE/MAX, Vancouver Island's most advanced real estate business network, since 1996, marketing and selling residential, rural, strata, recreational, investment, and project development real estate. Ian has received several awards recognizing his exceptional community commitment locally, as well as awards for outstanding performance and achievement from both RE/MAX International and the Vancouver Island Real Estate Board. You'll find true real estate professionals at ianlindsay.ca.
Here come Peter, here comes Dave. Oh, listen. Bringing stories, making waves, no missing. Spinning tales in the podcast cave, so sweet. Laughs and insights everywhere, what a treat. Peter and Dave, they're on the mics, all right. Join the ride, it's gonna feel just right.
Thank you for joining us and for listening. This is the podcast that focuses on life around mid-Vancouver Island. For listeners from afar, just to give geographical context to our location, we're sitting on a partially submerged mountain range just off the coast of British Columbia on the west side of Canada. And joining me on this mountaintop is your co-host, Dave Graham.
And what a view! Just to add further detail to our location, we proudly and sometimes smugly call this place paradise, thanks to the fact that we have one of the most temperate climates in Canada. We have palm trees growing here. Oh yeah, well, not a lot, but a few. And of course, we have world-famous beautiful BC vistas out every window with the mountains and the oceans, etc. We also happen to be in the most seismically active location in the country, so taking the good with the bad here in paradise. Speaking of good, I tell you, his mother would be proud. It's my co-host, Peter McCulley.
The planning for this summer's Parksville Beach Festival is about to transition into action as this momentous event is getting set to move into the community park. Over the last 25 years, Beach Fest has donated back to the community over $1.2 million. And Cheryl Dill will be stopping by the podcast cave to chat about the event.
You know, we bring in a good chunk of change there, and for that, we take a portion of that and give it back to all of the volunteer groups so that they can invest in their activities as well. So we kind of pay it forward, over 25 groups every summer, and allow them to invest in their amazing operations and projects that they have. If there's any funds on the bottom line from those donations, after we've paid for all of the event, it's about a $500,000 expense to put on the sand sculpting exhibition, believe it or not. That's often something that's incredibly shocking. So we have to raise that amount of money to pay for that.
Nanaimo blues artist David Gogo attended the Juno Awards in Vancouver recently. His new album, called Yeah, had earned him his 6th nomination. We had a wide-ranging interview which included the song Diamond in the Rough from the new album, and we talked about how David always looks sharp when he's on stage.
Well, I don't recall seeing any photos of Elvis Presley going on stage in a T-shirt and sweatpants. Especially in the blues world, I feel you have to, man. I always joke that it's my uniform, but it kind of is, and if people are paying money to go see, plus I just feel better. Okay, I'm going to put on a good show. I'm going to play well for these people, so I got to wear something good and some good footwear. Like Buckwheat Zydeco, I think I've heard a quote from him once saying that when he dresses up for a show, he said, I dress like I'm going for a bank loan. He said, a really, really big bank loan. And I agree with that.
The Pulse Community Podcast featured a conversation with Chilliwack frontman Bill Henderson in March, episode 16 to be precise. Almost 60 years ago, Bill stepped up to become lead guitarist for a Vancouver band called The Collectors. That group became Chilliwack, and they became a big force among the few in Canadian music that were able to garner international audiences. Nowadays, younger people see the Canadian music scene as it is without knowing that 60 years ago was a very different dynamic. Back then, most popular music was dominated by the Americans and the British. Chilliwack was the first rock band out of Vancouver to make it big. And by big, I mean to have success beyond our border. And now they've begun their farewell tour. The Farewell to Friends tour is underway. It'll land at Parksville Saturday, July 12th, and you could be there on us.
Oh yeah, to enter, send us an email and please include your name, phone number, and where you live. Oh, and one other thing. Tell us your favorite Chilliwack tune. Here's the address: Contest at thepulsecommunity.ca. Good luck. Draws on May 30th. And here's a heads up on a future giveaway. We will be offering a chance for you to win a general admission pass to Sunfest, the country music festival down island at Lake Cowichan.
Elbows Up is a movement that is spreading across the nation. The phrase is borrowed from the world of hockey, of course. Elbows up referring to a defensive physical posture on the ice. And it's come to also be a rallying cry in a pro-Canadian movement that we've seen expressed by Mike Myers on Saturday Night Live, and Arlene Dickinson, famous as a business person and being a dragon on Dragon's Den. She's been very vocal about how the tariffs will affect Canadians and spoke at a large rally in Toronto recently.
Staying with the Elbows Up theme, we had a message on our Speak to Us line.
Hey, Peter and David, this is Laura Palmer. You know me from my podcast, Island Crime, but I've also started another podcast with a small group of volunteers. The show is called Elbows Up, and yes, it's all about where we find ourselves as Canadians at this particular moment in time. This show is not political. We're not getting into any of the election stuff, but we're really talking about what Canadians can do and what we are doing right now to defend our sovereignty at this point in history. So again, the show's called Elbows Up. You can find it wherever you listen to podcasts, and I hope people will check it out. Take care, you guys.
The first episode of Elbows Up was about how Canada should probably revive its Civil Defense Corps. Interesting conversation for sure.
There's also some things happening on Vancouver Island in regards to the Elbows Up movement. We had a message as well from Mickey Findlay on our Speak to Us line. Mickey has an invitation to extend to a public event.
Elbows Up is a resistance movement happening all over Canada. This is not the time to sit on the sidelines. Join us on Sunday, April 13th, noon to 2 p.m. from Parksville, along the highway in front of Sirius Coffee. This will be a peaceful gathering, and it's called Elbows Up Van Isle, which you can find our event on Facebook. I hope that you will join us. All the information that you need is on that page. If you need inspiration for signs, you can go to our event page, Elbows Up Van Isle on Facebook, and if you look under the discussion tab, you will see some great ideas for signs. Invite family and friends to our event page. Share our videos, posters, and posts. Share your Canadian proud photos on our event page. I am a grandmother. I just want to leave a world that I can feel good about to my grandchildren. I challenge all grandparents to stand with me in solidarity on Sunday, April 13th. Elbows Up, Van Isle.
Thanks to Mickey Findlay for using our Speak to Us line to spread the word. There's more info available. Try searching Facebook for Elbows Up Van Isle. And if you would like to add your voice, whether it's about Elbows Up or not, leave us a voice message or a text or an email by following the contact link from our homepage, thepulsecommunity.ca. We'll also be keeping an eye or an ear to the hands-off demonstrations south of the border. Over 1,400 were held in 50 states with thousands participating.
The Parksville Beach Festival Society is into the home stretch leading up to launching the festival in July. Marilyn is here to introduce our next guest.
In the green room is Cheryl Dill, the longtime president of the Parksville Beach Fest Society. She'll share details of what's planned for the 2025 event.
Parksville Beach Festival Society President Cheryl Dill right here to talk about the festival and a big change.
You know, we've been in the community park for many, many years. The current format for the sand sculpting competition and exhibition is that it's not on the beach. We bring it up off the beach so that the exhibition can stand for 5.5 weeks. And we've been in this one location for many, many years, ever since 2000. And that's that lovely little round circle right by the gazebo. But one of the things we're excited about is that we're about to shift, still in the park, but on the other side of the large volleyball sand pit. And what that enables is our opportunity to grow. We have sand sculpting applications from sculptors all over the world, and we do have to kind of turn people away because we don't have enough space. So we're excited about the opportunity to grow. And we're excited about a venue that's going to allow a little bit more accessibility for those who need it. From the parking lot in behind the curling rink, it'll be a closer venue. So, you don't have to navigate a variety of pathways to where it has been. It's a little bit closer to that parking. And it's just going to be in a site that doesn't obstruct any view of the ocean. If you're in the gathering place, which is a beautiful location to gather as groups and families, our lovely tent where we have all of that sand sculpting exhibition, it does block the view. And if you want to book the gazebo for a wedding or something, do you want the big blue tent in behind you? So, it might be a better functional location from that perspective too. It's going to take our team to rally and make sure that this new venue is going to really benefit the exhibition. And we're really pleased to be working with the city. We consider our partnership with this city, first and foremost, incredibly important. And one of the things that we really value as well is supporting that community park to grow in a sustainable way. It's incredibly important, that jewel of a park to Parksville and the surrounding area. So we recognize that use of that facility has an impact, and we want it to be a positive impact, not a negative one. So that takes contributions. And so that's one of the things that we're able to do with our events, whether it's the theater events or the sand sculpting events, is to raise funds. And a portion of that goes towards a shift like this, an adjustment and contributions to the park. So we're really proud of that.
You talk about raising funds. Can you talk a little bit about the flow of money through Beach Fest and what it allows back into the community?
Absolutely. One of the values for our board of directors is that giving back to the community is incredibly important. So that generosity to support community growth is a value for Beach Festival. That's why we have so many volunteers involved, which helps us to reduce expenses. But we also recognize that we need to build a pot of money to pay for expertise where it's needed, because you cannot have event sustainability without that investment in volunteers and investment in expertise. And having said that, what we also do is we plan strategically for where we want funds to be able to go, so that we can invest in ourselves and invest in the community. So the flow of funds is really about donations at the gate for the sand sculpting exhibition. We bring in a good chunk of change there. And for that, we take a portion of that and give it back to all of the volunteer groups that visit the exhibition so that they can invest in their activities as well. So we kind of pay it forward, over 25 groups every summer, and allow them to invest in their amazing operations and projects that they have. If there's any funds on the bottom line from those donations, after we've paid for all of the event, it's about a $500,000 expense to put on the sand sculpting exhibition, believe it or not. That's often something that's incredibly shocking. So we have to raise that amount of money to pay for that. We also have to have a contingency set aside so that if, for example, there's a pandemic or there's terrible weather, we need to be able to have a pot of money to draw from to be able to pay for expenses up to that. We plan year round. This is not like, hey, the event is 5.5 weeks, so it's only a 5.5 weeks planning stage. It just doesn't work that way. Our volunteers work year round, and we pay for event management expertise that we're so fortunate for. So that's on the sand sculpting side. On the theater side, the reason why we have a couple of events we charge tickets for that is because those expenses need to be paid. And so our ticket price is such that it allows us to pay for all the event expenses for putting on Rock the Park and putting on our opening concert. Also, we're able to pay for some expertise to support the event management of all of the ticketed events and performance coordination and all of that. We have to pay for things like first aid and a variety of other things. So if there's money on the bottom line, and we hope that there is, we put that money aside to then invest in the next year of entertainment. We have to run it like a business, but because we're a not-for-profit, we invest in other things other than our organization. We invest in a sand sculpting move, and we invest in building a stage and things like that. So fiscal responsibility is incredibly important, and it's key to sustainability. And I work along with the board of directors to put together a budget so that we ensure that our theater expenses are paid for. Things like all the performances, all the supports required to ensure that those performances are run from a risk management point of view. The ticket expenses help to cover that, and we ensure that the theater expenses are paid for. That's really important to us, and if we have money on the bottom line, we're really pleased to be able to put it aside so that we can continue to bring these amazing performers that Lloyd works, with a team of experts to set up for the following year.
That's Entertainment Director Lloyd Derry. So you have volunteers working with the theater, you have volunteers at the gates of the sand sculpting exhibition. How many people does it take to make this happen?
I appreciate you asking that, because between the theater and the sand sculpting exhibition, there's 45 volunteers for the theater, and we get lots of people, sending us emails on a weekly basis saying, how can I get involved? And so we're excited to take that interest. And this spring, we're going to have a volunteer orientation where people can learn more about how can I contribute. There's that. And then there's also on the sand sculpting side, we have about 150 volunteers. The main concentration of those volunteers are gate ambassadors. And that's where we work with the not-for-profit groups. So each group contributes 6 to 12 volunteers. And so it really adds up. Plus, year-round, our board is a volunteer group. So Lloyd and I, we've been on the board for many, many years, in addition to another 8 directors on that board. When you add all that up, we're just around 200 volunteers to make this happen. And when you look at the expertise that we pay for, there's like under 10 people that we actually pay for some of the work that really we feel is not right to put on a volunteer's shoulders. Some of our volunteers on our board end up, we feel like we have a second job, but at the same time, we're driven by passion and our values to give back to the community, and it really just keeps us going. At the end of the season, when we pull people together to celebrate what we've done, it just feeds our hearts and it feeds our energy to continue doing this year after year.
These standards, I think, are self-evident, and the success of this whole event and theater venue are there for the world to see.
Yeah, we're so proud of that. It really is a team effort. We develop leadership skills of volunteers in what we do. I can't say enough about the experience that we create together, to see that joy and that shared level of experience every summer in that grassy field or on that grassy dance floor. Like, you bond with people that you don't even know when you're watching that Queen tribute, just rocking it out on the stage. It is such a magical experience, and it creates memories. You go back to your phone and look at that incredible 10-second video that just brings that joy and gives you the goosebumps all over again. I have to say, for Lloyd and I, that theater has just blown us away. I mean, when we were writing the grants in conjunction with the city, we projected an economic spinoff, and we know that we've exceeded that. But it really has gone beyond our expectations in terms of the demand for the theater events, in terms of the number of people sitting in that field. And same with the sand sculpting. It has garnered over 100,000 visitors year after year after year. It's put Parksville on the map. The way we've managed the risk in a sustainable way, and the partnership that we have with the municipality to ensure that, the local economy is benefiting and we're following their expectations around risk management, it's just been such a positive thing.
Just before we wrap up here, we've talked about sand sculpting and the theater. What else makes up Beach Festival?
Well, gosh, there's so many other events that, deserve a great spotlight. One of the things is the artisan market that we have at the end of July. Over 70 vendors are there. You're in that shady, beautiful area of the community park that they call the Arboretum, and it is gorgeous in there. In the hot summer sun, you can find some shade and you can appreciate the artistic talents of all the vendors that are there. And they're local artisans from the islands, from Vancouver Island. And it's a fun weekend. So there's that. We also have the light up show at the end of our sand sculpting exhibition. If you haven't seen the sculptures lit up at night, it is the weekend to come down there. And then our title sponsor, Quality Foods, I mean, they've been so dedicated to the sand sculpting event for so long, and they organize their own fireworks, and it's typically on that same night of our light up show. So wow, what a great ending to an incredible sand sculpting exhibition. The other thing is that there's a lot of users of the community park, but we feel like, in combination with all the volleyball exhibitions and the sand sculpting and the theater events and the sports teams and the dog walkers, it's just such a wonderful display of what the community is all about and why that community park is so incredibly important to everybody in this community.
Cheryl, so good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. It's always a pleasure to see you with all of your amazing experience and the history that you have in this community. I think this is wonderful.
The Parksville Beach Festival runs July 11th to August 17th, and our thanks to Cheryl for being part of the podcast. And thanks to one of our supporters, Windsor Plywood.
The Pulse Community Podcast is brought to you in part by Windsor Plywood in French Creek, specializing in hard-to-source interior and exterior home finishing products, including flooring, doors, and moldings, and exterior project materials such as yellow cedar. Windsor Plywood French Creek carries high-quality, responsibly sourced products and are committed to providing outstanding value and personalized, one-on-one service to all of our customers, homeowners, do-it-yourselfers, renovators, builders, designers, craftsmen, and contractors. Regardless of the type or size of your project, Windsor can help you bring your vision to life from start to finish. Let Windsor Plywood in French Creek help you with your renovation, new build, or building project. Visit them online or call 752-3122.
At Thrifty Foods, we love to help nonprofits, charities, and schools. Our Thrifty Foods Smile Card bulk program allows organizations to immediately save up to 6% on the purchase of Smile Cards in bulk, allowing you to keep more money in your organization's pockets. Ask for details at Thrifty Foods in Parksville.
An important part of the Pulse community is an offering for the younger ones in the form of stories for kids. Feel free to check out our growing collection of adventures in our Skookum Kids Stories. They are original stories in 2 different series. One is about Peter and his pet Eskimo dog, Gracie. Their latest story involves a visit to Barkerfields to bring home some chicks. Along the way, they learn about different kinds of chickens, and Gracie gets a chance to be a big sister figure for their new tiny, fluffy family members. Check out Peter and Gracie, as narrated by Peter McCulley.
Our other kid story features Captain Dave and the Mellow Submarine. The cast of characters include First Mate Larry the Lobster, and their most recent adventure has them tracking down the story behind the world-famous dessert treat, the Nanaimo Bar. You'll find these stories on thepulsecommunity.ca, also skookumkids.com, Apple, Spotify, iHeart, Amazon, and YouTube. If you're interested in joining our growing family of sponsors for the Pulse Community and Skookum Kid Stories podcasts, please let us know. Email me, peter@thepulsecommunity.ca.
The Juno Awards were handed out recently in Vancouver, and one of those in attendance is getting set to join us now. Marilyn will do the honors.
In the green room is blues singer-songwriter David Gogo of Nanaimo, who has been named Guitarist of the Year twice at the Junos, and 3 times Guitarist of the Year at the Maple Blues Awards. David has been nominated 6 times for a Juno Award for Blues Album of the Year.
Thanks for joining us on the podcast today, David.
My pleasure.
We're chatting shortly after the 2025 Juno Awards, which were held in Vancouver, and I checked out your posts on social media. You ran into a lot of people in the industry, some that you have a shared history with.
Yeah, well, it's 30 years since my first nomination. I was first nominated for Breakthrough Artist way back in the 90s, and I have now officially 6 losses and 1 disqualification. So I've been there a few times. It was nice to be back. The pandemic kind of really rocked our world for a few years, interrupted a lot of these events. So it was just nice to see everybody again. And see some people that I've known in the business for, decades and decades.
And some of those people might be...
One cool thing was I got invited to go to an after-hours jam that was hosted by Jim Cuddy from Blue Rodeo. His son Devin had invited me, and it was nice to get there and play. And at one point he was singing this big hit Try, and I was the guitar player. I thought, well, that's kind of a neat thing. But, you know, like my buddy Big Dave McLean, who won in my category, I mean, we were sitting beside each other having dinner at the gala dinner when he won. So that's the same thing. I met Dave probably in 89 or something. A bunch of people that used to, you know, be at CFOX, you know, media people, behind the scenes people, musicians. It was just a great event to be at. And I'm really glad it was in Vancouver, so it's relatively close. I didn't have to fly all the way to Halifax or something.
Well, you'd have a lot of fun in Halifax, believe me.
I have had a lot of fun in Halifax. Yeah.
I had 40 years of fun in Halifax.
Is that all?
Then I moved to the West Coast.
Yeah. Sometimes the expense of getting out there to try to see if you're going to win an award can be a bit much.
You mentioned that there was disqualification. Is there a story there?
There is, but it's boring, and I don't like talking about this. I just say that it was over steroid use, enhancing my performance.
You've released 17 albums so far in your career. The latest one that was nominated at the Junos was Yeah. You were working with Steve Mariner again, and your label was nominated for a Juno as well.
Well, Cordova Bay put out my record, and they put out Big Dave McLean's record. So Big Dave won. So we had 2 nominations. Mariner produced them both, so I consider him having 2 nominations. And I think it was Cordova Bay's first Juno. It's kind of cool. Like, it's never been a blues label, per se. We've had all sorts of different rock and roll bands and more dance-oriented things. But in the last year or so, they put up my record, Big Dave McLean's record, David Best and Jerry Robb, Tony D, and then Steve Mariner's own album is coming out very soon. So all of a sudden we've got all these blues/roots artists. So that's cool with me.
Was there music at home when you were growing up, David? I know that there's music in your family. You have cousins who are musicians.
Yeah, I have cousins that play. In my household, there wasn't any real live music, but my dad listened to a lot of music, and he listened to it loud. And luckily, it was good music. You know, in amongst the Hank Williams and CCR was Taj Mahal, some B.B. King, some Canned Heat. That's kind of what I gravitated towards. And yeah, music was meant to be played loud in my house. So that was good.
Nothing wrong with that. When did you turn out your first album?
I believe it was 93 or 4.
And you were how old?
23 or 4. Yeah, the eponymous debut. It was funny. I was talking to a guy at the Junos. I did the one record with EMI. It was actually Capitol Records when I first signed with them. And we only did one record. We just never saw eye to eye on what I should be doing. And this guy told me, 30 years later, he said, man, we should have just put out a blues record. I said, yeah, really? You think so? And even my ex-manager, Jacob J. Gold, said the same thing. Buddy, we should just put out a blues record. I'm like, yeah, I was saying that the whole time. But I put out a lot of blues records since then.
Do you remember the first time you heard a song that you performed on the radio?
That was probably before all of that. 100.3 The Q radio in Victoria used to do a thing called Rocktoria, which they'd get local artists and they'd have a bit of a battle of the bands thing. And then their favorite 3 or 4 acts, they'd make a little compilation album. So that's probably the first time.
You've talked about being in Europe numerous times over the years. Have you been back since COVID?
No, but there's discussion. I mean, that was another thing. COVID just kicked us down a lot, not only North America. I mean, we've lost some venues, we've lost some festivals just because they had to go 2 years without getting any income and trying to keep that going, and they couldn't do it. A lot of people quit. People that I've been working with for a long time just said, why are we doing this after all this time? Just last week, I got some emails. There's definitely some interest over there again. That's something I'll be working on, if not by the end of this year, then definitely early next year.
Where in particular in Europe?
I've always done well in Holland and Germany, in that area, around Belgium. There's always interest, but, people don't realize the costs and, the hoops you have to jump through, especially now. You start introducing things like Brexit, and now our friends to the south, I'm not sure what the situation is there, trying to get work visas and everything. So people don't realize the hoops you have to jump through and the actual expense. I mean, every day off on the road in a place like Europe, paying for rental vehicles and hotel rooms and everything else. I mean, it could be astronomical. That being said, I'm trying to slowly figure out ways to make it work. In the past, I worked with Dutch musicians, and quite often will stay with those guys when I'm over there. We've had some great gigs, so I'm looking forward to getting back.
I wanted to ask you about the bottle slides. I love the sound, and I've long been a fan of Bonnie Raitt, and I know you use a number of different items as bottle slides.
I probably started playing slide when I started developing my acoustic show. My friend Ken Ham is a top-notch fingerstyle guitarist plus bottleneck. And then the influence of people like Johnny Winter. I mean, it's very there in the blues. I usually use a glass bottleneck This one, I think, is from Hornby Island. So it's actually like a wine bottle neck that someone has carefully sawed off. But you can use different devices. Another friend of mine uses a brass slide. I could never quite get a good tone out of the brass. There's metal slides, and there's even ceramic slides. It's a real blues sound. When I play slide, I played in an open tuning. So I tune my guitar to an open chord, and you get that real more of a blues sound happening there. So I usually have an extra guitar that's set up just in that tuning and just for slide.
You mentioned Johnny Winters. We've chatted with a number of musicians on this podcast who were given encouragement somewhere along the way in their career to keep at it by somebody they admired. Who were some of your early influences?
Well, there's tons of them, and I was fortunate to get to meet a lot of them. I kind of made it, and I still do. I try to go not only see these people play, but try to meet them and get some kind of connection. So, Stevie Ray Vaughan, when I was 14 or 15 years old, I got to spend some time with him, and he was very encouraging. Albert Collins was really my guy, like the guy I looked up to a lot, a great blues guitar player. Originally out of Texas, lived in California for the rest of his life. We opened a lot of shows for him back in the day, and I got to sit in with him, and he was really encouraging. That's just off the top of my head. But throughout my career, through opening up and touring with people, struck up friendships with Johnny Winter or Kim Simmons from Savoy Brown. Eventually I was asked to play on the Miles Goodwin from Maple Wine blues records. So it's a good feeling to kind of have your peers, especially some of the artists that are a little older that I might have listened to on the radio when I was a kid, influences of me when they were encouraging you and telling you that you're doing a good job. That's a great feeling.
We lost a good one when we lost Miles.
Yeah, that really caught me off guard. We were kind of becoming buddies, and he was already talking about doing another record, and we were talking about working together and maybe even trying to write a song. That one caught me off guard.
I grew up in Nova Scotia when April Wine was really, really rocking it, and they were a big part of the fabric of our music at that time.
Yeah, great songs, great performances, really hot players, man. I opened for them a few times during my career, or I'd be on a festival, and top-notch players.
How many guitars do you own, David, and do you have a favorite?
I have several. I have looked at a few. I'm in my music room here in Nanaimo right now. I've got a lot of guitars. I have a couple that live out in Ontario with my band there. I have a couple that live in Europe with my band there. I got 10 of them, but I play them all. He asked about a favorite. Well, it depends what I'm doing. If I'm doing my acoustic show, I've got a 1930 National Steel guitar. That's, it'd be difficult to do my solo show without that. As far as my electric show, for many, many years, I played a Fender Stratocaster. And then about 10 years ago, I switched to a Gibson Les Paul, which was an odd thing. Usually guitar players will go from a Gibson to a Fender later in life because you start to get a sore back or you got a bum shoulder or something. I did the opposite and chose the world's heaviest guitar. It's a 1972 Gibson Gold Top Les Paul Deluxe with a big speed tremolo system. And that's kind of been my girlfriend for a while now.
Another one of your social media posts that caught my eye when you were heading off to the Junos was you were showing the outfits that you were going to take along with you. You really do dress for the stage and the occasion. You always look sharp.
Well, I don't recall seeing any photos of Elvis Presley going on stage in a T-shirt and sweatpants. Especially in the blues world, I feel you have to, man. I always joke that it's my uniform, but it kind of is, and if people are paying money to go see, plus I just feel better. Like, I think, okay, I'm going to put on a good show. I'm going to play well for these people, so I got to wear something good and some good footwear. Like Buckwheat Zydeco, I think I've heard a quote from him once saying that when he dresses up for a show, he said, I dress like I'm going for a bank loan. He said, a really, really big bank loan. and I agree with that.
How many pairs of boots and or shoes do you have? Do you know?
Many. In fact, John Flubog and his wife were at one of my gigs recently, and the promoter, just before he came on stage, said, that's John Flubog out there. So I was running out and trying to introduce myself because I figured, hey, that'd be kind of a cool endorsement deal rather than, a guitar company or something. Get a shoe endorsement.
Do you get them from a special place?
I have quite a few pairs of Flubogs. I order online sometimes now. I just kind of, if I see them when I'm on the road. There's a place in Cloverdale called Stampede Tack. And a few years ago, there was a pair of cowboy boots there that I was coveting. But they weren't cheap. So my deal was I went over to the Lower Mainland. I think I had 3 shows, and 2 of them were acoustic shows where I was getting paid based on how many tickets I sold. So I promised myself I wouldn't buy the boots unless I sold out both those shows, which I did. So I bought the boots.
One of my favorite places on the island was Ridge Riders for a long time. Just loved the smell of that place.
Oh, yeah, I'd go there every time. And then last time I was in Campbell River, I just kind of knew. I pulled over and it's some kind of a trinket shop now. They sell like little flags. And, you know, I love these Canadiana stores that sell little stuffed moose on Vancouver Island. We've never had a moose here. Or a lobster or something. But Ridge Rider was one of those joints. Yeah, you walk in and you just get that scent of leather, the aroma. I bought some nice suits there, man. In fact, when I was at the Junos in Calgary a bunch of years back, I had a nice powder blue cowboy suit that I bought at Ridge Rider.
You've traveled extensively as a musician, obviously. Perhaps you could offer us a story or two from your most memorable moments from your time on the road?
Well, it's something that I enjoy doing, especially when I'm doing the acoustic trips, because I can kind of do that on my own. And then I can book a few shows and then take a few days here and there to explore. Like I just went back to Saskatchewan for the first time since the pandemic. I played a nice festival. It's a real good festival in downtown Regina. But then I took a couple days just to explore. And I've got friends down in southeast Saskatchewan in a little funny town called Forget, which is spelled forget. I like taking pictures of old abandoned houses and ghost towns and things like that. So those are, to me, my memories. But, you know, since the pandemic, I've had an interesting time because I haven't played as many shows as I normally do. But in the last year, I've gone from New Brunswick to Quebec to Whitehorse to the prairies, and now I'm heading up to the interior this weekend. So I'm getting around anyways. I need to get back to Winnipeg soon. I need to get back to Montreal. You know, that's the cool thing about playing music is you get to travel and you get to see these different places and you get to meet people and try different foods and go to guitar stores and boot stores.
Running back to Saskatoon, did you say?
I was supposed to be doing this last trip, and record stores, that's my other Achilles heel is record stores. I love rolling back to Saskatoon. That's a great town. I had my best time ever in Regina recently. That town's been kind of a mystery to me in terms of finding an audience. We played a beautiful venue called Dark Hall, Darke, beautiful old building. They put a lot of money in to restore it, and that was great.
In addition to being a singer and a guitarist, you're also a songwriter. What's your process, David?
You know, I don't really have one. You know, I'm already starting to write for the next album. I'll just think of a line, like a lyric or a title, or maybe a riff in my head. And if I don't write it down, then I will forget it. I just turned 56 years old. So, you know, what I try to do is every couple of days or so, I'll go in the music room here and I get out that little list. It might just be one lyric. It might be a whole verse or just a concept. It's not set in stone. You know, I don't start with music. I don't start with lyrics. It just depends whatever pops into my head. And to me, it's just like trying to keep that radar spinning and trying to pick up the ideas. I'm already started. In fact, after our interview today, that's my project for today is to start getting some of these new ideas in a row so we can start thinking about a next record.
Let's talk about a tune from the Juno-nominated album, Yeah, Diamond in the Rough.
I started dating a girl last year. It's kind of about her. She ended up kind of being bad news bears for me, but I got a good tune out of it. It's a fun song to play live, you know. It's just a good rock and roll tune. When we recorded the album, I was listening to a lot of Bad Company and Free and those 70s rock bands, so there's definitely that spirit in the song.
She's so sweet, she's all mine. She don't seem like the marrying kind. That's okay, that's just fine. She's always willing to blow my mind. I bring her flowers and scented candles. When I light her up, she's too hot to handle. Sexy scars, though they drive me crazy. I'd go and see her now if I wasn't so lazy. She's my sugar, she's my spice. I still love her when she's not.
Can you tell us about any upcoming projects or collaborations that you have planned for 2025? What can the Gogo Nation expect to hear from you in the near future?
As I mentioned, I'm going to start writing for a new album really quick, and I'm looking forward to getting out and just playing the songs from the latest record from Yeah is a lot of fun. We're working those into the set. But the other thing is I'm going to start writing a book. Well, I have. Just before the pandemic, I started up my podcast, the Soul Bender podcast. I started off just talking about things I've done in my career. Then I started interviewing other artists. It just struck me. I've been involved in a lot of really super cool things over the several decades and worked with some really interesting people. I think there's enough interest out there that I'm going to start documenting that. I was lucky to have a lot of photos from that era because this, a lot of the people I met was before cell phones. So I would literally get autographs from people rather than photos. But I do have photos of me with B.B. King, me with Stevie Ray Vaughan, me on stage with Johnny Winter, me with Albert Collins, a lot of that kind of stuff. So that's a cool thing to have in a book. But, just trying to get the recollections and pound it out and, the memoir, the memories of the memoir.
How can folks find your Soulbender podcast?
It is available on all formats. It's on Spotify, Apple, anywhere you find your podcast, you can find it. I think we're close to 60 episodes or something now.
David, thanks for your time today. We'll head to your website and check out your tour schedule for 2025.
Yes, and please follow me on the social media. I had a good time at the Junos documenting that, and people were thanking me, people that don't have television anymore because they've cut off the cable or whatever, so they could live vicariously through me.
David Gogo out with his latest album, Yeah, which earned him his 6th Juno nomination. He walked away without the trophy this time around. Yeah, the place on the mantle reserved for a Juno remains empty. But it isn't as if he doesn't already have a shelf or two full of awards from a lifetime in the biz and great accomplishments. He'll be okay.
Ian Lindsay of Lindsay and Associates has played an active role in the local community since 1979. He has been with RE/MAX, Vancouver Island's most advanced real estate business network since 1996, marketing and selling residential, rural, strata, recreational, investment, and project development real estate. Ian has received several awards recognizing his exceptional community commitment locally, as well as awards for outstanding performance and achievement from both RE/MAX International and the Vancouver Island Real Estate Board. You'll find true real estate professionals at ianlindsay.ca.
Some of the folks we can look forward to chatting with in the coming weeks include Jeremy Humperville. Jeremy runs the Coastal Carvings Gallery in Coombs, where they've been filming a TV series, which will be coming this fall to APTN.
We'll also be chatting with Mike Hann, the festival director behind Laketown Amphitheater. Nickelback will be playing there this summer, and Laketown will also be hosting Sunfest, the country music festival, over 4 days. That starts at the end of July. And we will be giving away a general pass to that festival on a future episode of the Pulse podcast. Something else that's happening at Laketown promises to raise money and bust Jeeps, quote unquote. Jeepapalooza is an annual event in support of the BC Cancer Foundation. It will be happening in May.
Maybe you have a suggestion for someone we should be featuring on the podcast or a topic we could look into. Whatever it may be, we're always happy to hear from you. Follow the contact links from our home site, thepulsecommunity.ca.
Yeah, I have a suggestion. Could we get Ryan Reynolds on the show? Could maybe somebody look into that?
Sure, Dave. I'll get right on that.
Oh, cool.
Sure. Can I get you something from the cafeteria while I'm up?
Seriously?
No. Let's go see what Mabel has on special today.
Oh, I already checked with Mabel. It's deep fried surprise day.
Well, I hope you have that big bottle of Tums.
Tums, yes. And we have Gaviscon, got some Pepsid AC here, Nexium. Oh, and Rolaids, too. I've got both fruit gummies and the mint chewables. Even some chocolate-flavored tablets. There's some licorice root extract.
Here come Peter, here comes Dave. Oh, listen. Bringing stories, making waves, no missing. Spinning tales in the podcast cave. So laughs and insights everywhere. What a treat.